And we are here. We can talk a little bit about last night. I hope you were able to watch it and to get some understanding from it. Not so much that I am or was concerned about Christmas or Santa or any of that. My problem was the fact that that God did something incredible in His creation, and we're supposed to know about it. And if you don't know, if you don't know about the constellations, if you don't know that the 12 constellations were put in the sky by God, and those 12 constellations are a representative of a future 12 apostles that Jesus would have, and a future son that goes through those constellations would be Jesus, the Son of God. And if you don't know that the constellations are simply a mirror of God's plan of redemption in the star constellations to tell man how he's going to redeem us, what the process will be, that the lamb would die, that there would be a virgin. And this is, of course, why we start the constellations with a Virgo. What is the Virgo? And let me think about that. Yes, with the Egyptians, they have this this statue, and I believe it's still in Egypt right now, and it is the statue of a lion, but it has a woman's head. So it starts off, there's a woman's head, but the body of a lion. And it's just saying that everything begins with the woman, the Virgo, the virgin, and everything ends with the Lion of Judah. And this is what God is trying to let us know. He's already written the gospel inside of the stars, okay? He's already told us what would happen. Jesus died at the time of what we call the constellation of Aries, which is a lamb. Now, if you think that's an accident, that's you not knowing that God had already pre-planned everything and had already put it in the star constellations. The video that I gave you guys last night concerning the star constellations, one of the things is that that in that video, this also shows um, uh, the fact that God is like just mirroring everything that He's already placed in the stars as He goes through the Bible. Okay, we're going to try to talk about something a little different today, and that is the fact that we are still here, and it really doesn't make sense. Um, if you know the Bible, if you know the plan, if you know the 6,000 years, if you know 1948, if you know 1967, you should know that something is strangely off. That we're still here, and the only thing that we have right now that we are able to look at, and I think it's a pretty strong case, is that 2025 is the beginning of Genesis, concerning the verses in the book of Genesis, concerning the name of Adam, concerning the marriage of Isaac to Rebekah. All these things are giving us 2025 from the beginning. So if God told us the end from the beginning, we need to be able to look at those and to still have hope, because after Rosh Hashanah of this year and the Joshua prophecy, there are a lot of people that are like, well, where do we look to now? And I say the only thing that we can look to now for myself is the fact that you have all of these prophecies in Genesis that push us to 2025. And so we're going to look at that again today. We're going to look at things that are obvious that God has given us so that we can go, okay, these things are obvious that God put them in the Bible that they would happen at these exact times. And so if they are that obvious, then we have to ask ourselves what is going on. Is 2025 something that we need to make sure that we are staying in line and that we are staying focused on Christ, and that I'm not, and when I say focus on Christ, I mean focus on the mission of getting the gospel out to the world and preaching the gospel to the world. My mission is preparing the saints for the exit. And to prepare you for the exit, I need to continually let you know that you are not a part of a religion. You are part of God's plan and truth. And that's just the way it is. And as soon as you get away from the fact that you want to be religious, because I'm telling you, churches are killing me right now. They are. I mean, I'm watching and I'm going, are they still doing that? Are they still, stopping church so that they can do a drum roll and people can jump around and dun, 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 dun. Are they? I watched the church do that. I go, are they still doing that? Are we past that? I'm like, wow. We have to get to relationship. This is not a show. Someone said, hey, Pastor Sandy, don't put down music because the girl said, well, I'll go there, but I said, are you learning a lot about the word? And she says, there's a lot of singing, a bunch of singing. And I said, well, you're going to have to get to the point where you start studying the word, because you're not going to grow by singing. You're going to grow by studying the word and getting into the word. And I'm not putting down praise and worship, because I think it creates an atmosphere for the body, for the presence of God to be in and work. But if the music is not right, it sets a stage for demons to do work. So, and that's one of the problems we have with church now, is a lot of the music that's coming out of Elevation, Hillsong, and stuff like that. And that music is portal music for demons, And so this is why when I heard the pastor say, we're going to be at this big stadium and we're going to open up portals, we're going to pray until a portal opens up, I went, oh boy, I'm not sure about that. This is the same pastor who was saying that, when Jesus was living in Palestine during his days. I was like, there's no such thing as Palestine in Jesus' day. But, if you warn Christians and you say, oh, it's very hard, Pastor. It's very hard. I mean, if me and you are very good friends, but if you saw me do something, if you saw me, hanging out with drug dealers and passing kilos of cocaine to them and them passing me money, as good of friends as we are, I don't think you'd hang out with me anymore, right? It's just things that sometimes you see things that you say, I need to be on alert about this person. You can't let your feelings about them direct your common sense away from the fact of what you just saw. You understand? It's crazy. They had that Pastor Evans meet with Lecrae the other day. He never even talked about why he had to step down. They just talked about all the wonderful things he did in ministry. I said, aren't we going to talk about the drug sale? I'm like, you're here sitting here with Tony Evans. You haven't asked him one time about why he had to step down. The only thing you talked about was all his wonderful things and all of the great friends that he had. And they mentioned somebody that's very crooked that was best friends with him. And and they mentioned, oh yeah, you and Bishop Kenneth Omer, you guys were best friends and all of this. And I'm like, everybody he's mentioning is like horrible Freemason people. And I'm like, but you're going to bring it back and you're not even going to mention why did you have to step down? And that's what, Satan is expecting us to just enjoy the show Don't don't even focus on what you see. Basically, ignore what you see and just um, and just follow the show. And you can't do that as a born again, Bible believing Christian. You can't not just follow the show. You're going to have to study for yourself and see what's going on and make proper decisions, okay, about who you're going to follow based on the fact of who they're following, who their friends are. My mom used to say, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, okay? And so I don't want to just follow the show, okay? Um, Pastor Ben, I received a horrible letter from one of our members. He said, you talked about Charlie Kirk as if he was a bad person, and I want nothing to do with your ministry. Maybe you should retire and just let Pastor Ben take over. And I'm like, but me and Pastor Ben are a team. No, I was just thinking, I'm like, but he was upset that I didn't come forth and present Charlie Kirk as being a wonderful saint who has been wrongly assassinated and all that. I never heard of him until he got shot, to tell you the truth. So anyway, but then when I looked through all the things that he was doing, I looked at him at this Catholic church, and he's talking to everyone about how we should venerate Mary more, and that if more women in the church were like Mary, and we need to make sure that we honor Mary more. And I was like, even Jesus in the Bible doesn't elevate Mary, and even Mary doesn't elevate Mary. But when you're trying to elevate Mary, you're doing something for the other side. Okay, so that put me on alert. Then I saw him sitting with Candace Owens, and they were both throwing up the Baphomet sign with the mega hat on. So I'm like, oh my goodness, they're both a part of this. Okay? And then I see Candace Owens at a Freemason lodge pledging herself to Catholicism with the black and white floor. And I'm like, these people are a part of the show. Okay? So I guess I'm supposed to ignore that and just remember that Charlie Kirk said, Jesus is the way. Well, Kenneth Copeland says Jesus is the way. So I'm watching the whole show. I'm not just taking little snippets that I like, I'm watching the whole show, and I'm just telling you. So I have this picture of, and I'm not going to, you don't have to show it past me. I'm going to show it from here. I have this picture here of Candace Owens and him doing the Baphomet, and then I had T.D. Jakes and P. Diddy also doing the same sign, President Trump doing the same sign, and then I had, Jack Hibbs doing the same sign, and then Andrew Tate doing the same sign. It gets worse. It gets worse than that? Then I got Joel Osteen doing the same sign. I got Joseph Prince throwing up the 666. Kenneth Copeland throwing up the Baphomet. It's just, and then all of these government officials all throwing up the same satanic sign. And I'm like, are we supposed to just ignore what we're seeing and just say all of these people are fine, or are they all a part of this same work? You understand? I want to hit you guys to one thing. Charlie Kirk's wife won Donald Trump's Miss Arizona pageant, which Donald Trump financed the whole pageant for Miss Arizona. Charlie Kirk's daughter won the contest. Charlie Kirk's wife won the contest. Okay? Her father was the architect on the Trump Plaza. So you see, you keep getting these connections, right? She does a music video with all the numbers that are saying something's going to happen on 9/10. And she's in the music video of some rock group that's saying, and then they ride by this thing that says 9/10, like something's going to happen September 10th, right? So I'm like, all of this stuff that's going on is satanic, sacrificial things that they're all a part of. And if you get involved with these people, something good, something bad is always going to end up happening. You understand? So stop with all the, uh, let's ignore anything that we see and just watch the show. I'm not doing it, okay? People in my neighborhood got drug dealers handing out turkeys on Thanksgiving, right? And I'm like, oh, he's such a wonderful man. He's handing out turkeys again this year. I said, yeah, but he's selling crack to all your neighbors during the rest of the year. You know what I mean? So it's like, is he a good, so do we ignore the crack deal to say, oh, he's a great person because he's handing out turkeys? We got to wake up and stop being silly Christians. I get this young lady, and she's standing in front of this audience, and she says, I'm going to tell you something that's very shocking. She's because they were talking to her about being one of the children that was at Bohemian Grove that were part of the pedophilia. And she says, I'm going to tell you something shocking. I was molested there by Richard Nixon, and I was molested there by Billy Graham. And she said, I know some of you Christians are going to be mad, but I was given to Billy Graham from Richard Nixon. And then I looked that Richard Nixon and Billy Graham were best friends, And so, and then I looked to say if there was ever a time that Billy Graham was at Bohemian Grove, there's pictures of him there, with Richard Nixon. And I'm like, wow, this young lady was telling the truth. So I'm supposed to tell this young lady, oh, you're a fat liar because Kenneth